We just found out that Austin Lee Russell, better known as Pawn Stars Chumlee, has agreed to a plea deal that will keep him out of jail. We can see Rick Harrison's world going apart right in front of us. After being given a life sentence, his son is now in a bitter family fight that could destroy everything he has worked for. It used to be impossible to stop the Pawn Stars kingdom, but now it's almost destroyed. Watch to find out what happens next after the truth about Rick's fall is told. Everyone is going to be shocked when a Vegas power falls. Rick Harrison, who is 59 years old now, is sinking in a storm of family issues and court cases that will never end. There were reports at first that his son would get a life term, but it turned out to be true. Even though Pawn Stars used to be a money-making machine, it looks like it's not going to last much longer. Things get worse just when you think they can't get any worse. As a family falls apart, there is a crime that will change everything for good. Pawn Stars wasn't just a lucky break. It was planned and made from scratch. Rick and his dad, Richard, were tough. They knew a lot about business and money and wouldn't put up with nonsense. Fans liked how honest and straightforward he was. Richard passed away in 2018, and the shop lost more than just its founder. It lost its core. A lot of people liked learning about history and seeing the family connect. Chumlee was fun for kids, even though Rick did everything he could to keep things going. Las Vegas was already in trouble. Not getting paid on time, making little money, and dealing with customers who caused more trouble than they solved made running a pawn shop hard. However, Rick knew how to win. People weren't just buying things he knew. They were buying history and a link to something bigger. People really liked Pawn Stars because it had weird and rare things and even stranger stories to go with them. After that, the TV show came out in 2009. No one saw it coming, but Rick. His son Corey and their friend Chumlee became popular all of a sudden. They were great to watch as they bought and sold everything from pirate swords to old coins. The show became a hit right away. Fame, on the other hand, can turn things around. As the lawsuits and family fights grew, it became hard to ignore the chaos going on behind the scenes. Things could no longer be hidden by 2022. Rick's mom, Joanne, took him to court because they couldn't agree on who owned the shop. He said she knew what she was doing, but she said he tricked her into giving up her share while she was unconscious. The case asked him to give a full account of more than $500,000 and even asked for an injunction to stop him from selling off shop assets. People have been coming to the toy expo since the first day because it's so much fun. Yesterday, I got a half truck full of toys. It got even worse when the pandemic hit their business like a freight train. They used to make a lot of money, but after a bad case, they only got $37,000. After that, there was Chumlee on TV, who was known as the cute clown. He was always getting into trouble off-screen. In 2016, his house was searched as part of a probe into a crime. Even though the sexual assault charges against him were dropped, the cops found enough drugs and guns that weren't registered to charge him with several crimes. He didn't go to jail because he took a plea deal, but his image will never be the same. Fans were shocked, and a lot of people stopped watching the show. Even Corey wasn't staying out of trouble. He was notorious for getting into fights in bars and trouble with the law. He rented a motor vehicle in 2020 for a trip to the desert. It is said that he ruined it and refused to pay for it. The owner said he left the car full of trash and empty bottles. It made the Harrison family look bad in front of everyone. Scams could happen to anyone on the show, even the experts. Johnny Jimenez Jr., who was often a toy expert, was charged in a personal dispute. Drew Max, a show host who is an expert on sports memorabilia, was accused of certifying fake collectibles, which caused a fraud incident that cost the show a lot of trust. Pawn Stars fans began to notice that something was wrong with the show over time. The show that used to be fun to watch about historical objects had turned into a family story in slow motion. Rick tried to expand his business by building Pawn Plaza, a shopping area next to the shop. There were betrayals and scandals, but the business inside blamed him for not selling the area well enough, and the effort failed. So people sued, and yet another big plan went down the drain. The show kept going, but even the most devoted fans agreed that wasn't as good as it used to be. It was one mistake after another that Rick's business was falling apart. No matter what, Rick was sure of one thing: the show would go on. To keep his money safe, he quickly found other investments, real estate, and business chances. The shop had seen the best and worst of people with big hopes and dreams. When the next seller came along, they brought a lot more cash, collectibles, and quick deals. A man comes in with what looks like a 10B British pound note. But it's not any bill. There are changes made by the famous street artist Banksy. It seems like the seller has found a huge treasure, and the old man buys it. When the old man looks at it, he thinks it's fake money, which it is. But the guy tells him that Banksy's art is worth thousands of dollars. He knows the old man won't believe him. Only broken cash is what he sees. Someone who knows a lot about Banksy's work says it is real, but not a very rare or important piece. A few $100s is about how much it's worth. The seller tries to save what he can because he used to dream of making a lot of money. The old man doesn't believe him when he says he wants $500. The guy talks things over for a long time and finally gets $400. Maybe he thought there would be more, but here's some background. An ex-Navy member comes in with an old sextant that was used on the USS WW2 repair ship Hector. The guy has stories, and the old man loves military history, so they are both interested in the same thing. But let's be honest, we don't live in the 1800s anymore, so sextants aren't used to find our way. The seller wants close to $400, but the old man bids even less because he knows fans are rare. The seller tries to fight back, but it's tough to talk to a pawn shop owner who has been in business for a long time. I don't feel good about $390. For this, $200 would be fine with me. Take the first one. $275 comes in the door. The deal ends at $265, which isn't bad, but isn't the big cash the seller was looking for. They say that an old black and white panoramic picture of a Las Vegas airport during World War II is cool. Waltz is sure that the artifact he has is worth at least $500. The old man doesn't move much. Though it's interesting, the fact that it's old doesn't mean it's important. He says that history buffs might like it, but not a lot of people are buying it. The seller still has hope and offers $400 as a counteroffer. But the old man doesn't want to talk. He only offers $100, which shocks the seller. The seller tries to get a better price, but it doesn't work. He walks away with the picture still in his hand, knowing that in the loan world, emotional value doesn't always mean cash. The Savage Navy revolver, a gun from the Civil War, is being sold. They know it's rare because it looks weird. The old man doesn't want to buy it at $1,800, so he starts betting. He gets a gun expert to confirm that the gun is real. The expert also says that the gun wasn't a big hit back in the day because it was heavy, awkward, and not very useful. People who collect weird history items, though, think it's only worth about $2,000 at most. The seller still wants to get a lot of money, but the old man doesn't want to pay too much, so he makes a deal. The seller is about to choke. Rick replies, No, that's not going to happen. I think it will be more like $1,250. A lot of different numbers are thrown around, but the old man is firm, and the deal is sealed at $1,400. The seller didn't get much money, but the old man got a signed baseball from the 1951 Yankees, which for sports fans is like a dream come true. Sports greats like Mickey Mantle and Joe DiMaggio have signed the seller's ball. It sounds great until you take a closer look. The name is worn off and faded, and there is no proof that it is real. Because the old man knows better than to risk sports memorabilia, he hires a professional. The expert says it's real, though it's broken, and it's worth a lot. Not at all. The seller, who wants $3,000, is hit with the truth. The old man offers $800, but the terms are very important to him. The seller gives up and walks away with the ball still in his hand. There's no deal here. The old man wasn't pleased because he knows there is a market for nerd trinkets, but only for the right person. The seller asks $2,000 because he is sure he has something special. The old man laughs and says, It's not a real prop used on screen, and nerds usually build their own instead of buying. Then he makes a firm offer of $0. The seller thinks about it for a while and then takes it. He may have spent more than that on it, but he has money for his next job now. Do you want to see Ghostbusters? Get off your behind. I thought I would get a little more than $150, but I only got that much. I now have cash in a 6-foot-tall wooden Indian figure that stands out. The seller says it makes him feel emotional because it used to be outside of his grandfather's tobacco shop. But that's not enough to sell it. He wants to get $900 for it then. There's no deal. The old man laughs and throws $400 away. He wants $600, but the old man tells him that he wins again if he can't sell it for more than $600. The shop felt more like an art show some days, with big names, high goals, and a very thin line between success and failure. A man with what he said was a Picasso owl vase came in and wanted to sell it for a lot of money. This jar wasn't any old one. He made it himself in the 1940s or 1950s. The number of copies made was limited to 500. An exclusive run sounds fancy, but Picasso made a lot of these owls. Each batch got a stamp, a number, and was sent out to a lot of people. Back then, no one thought they would be worth much, but they are now, or at least that's what the seller hoped would happen. That person had this vase for more than 35 years. He was moving and chose to sell it. He came in with the big goal of getting $35,000, but Rick from the pawn shop wasn't going to take it. He didn't just take his word for it, he got an expert to look it over also. There was no doubt that this art expert was talking about a real item. He proved it by pointing out important details like the right stamps, marks, and spotless condition. Condition can make or break a deal, so that last point is very important. This vase looked like it was made by Picasso yesterday. Then the shocking price. Some online sellers are selling these vases for $61,000, but that is just a dream. Even more than that, this piece could bring in $25,000. That's a lot more than what the seller wanted. But it hits hard in the pawn shop world. Rick made an offer of $115,000. Chad confirmed that it was real and agreed with what Rick said about checking prices online. People can ask about anything all day. The important thing is what they get in the end. They fought back and forth like two poker players trying to see who would fold first. The seller wouldn't move. The final price in the world of talks was $107,000. That's pretty good for a vase that had been empty for many years. Another Picasso piece showed up just when you thought you had seen everything. It was a frame picture from the 1950s this time. It was one of 150 that were made and was called Goat Skull on Table. Someone bought it years ago for almost $119,500, and the owner thought $116,000 was a good price. The staff at the pawn shop wasn't going to spend that much money without first talking to a professional. It was actually an aquatint etching, which sounds fancy because it looked like a watercolor but wasn't made by hand. Worthwhile? Yes, but it's not really worth $116,000. The best deal was $11,000 after a quick call to the boss. The seller was on the fence at first, but in the end agreed to the deal. The loan shop now had another Picasso. The seller then put up 6 etchings from a limited edition book and demanded $5,000 for them. He was hoping that anything with Picasso's name on it would sell like crazy. But there's a catch. Picasso is one of the most famous artists of all time, but not every piece he made is a masterpiece. Some sell for a very small amount of money, like a few $100s. The experts came and said these were real. They were part of a special collection of Picasso drawings for a book called Lysistrata. The book was worth a lot more because Picasso signed it. Even though it was worth $10,000, Rick wasn't going to throw it away because he thought it could be worth even more. There was a lot of back and forth, but in the end, Rick agreed to pay $6,000. Another group of Picasso works found a new home. He said, "All right, we have a deal. I'll shake your hand. I'm going to settle for $6,000. He said, That's $1,000 more than I thought I could get from the book. The Picasso parade wasn't over yet, though. He said it was a Picasso painting from the 1968 Celestine collection when he brought it in. Not having the right papers is like trying to sell a car without the title. A lot of red flags go up. Rick checked with his favorite art dealer to make sure it was real. Expert gave the item the green light after checking the quality of the paper, the plate marks, and its total worth. It was real, but it wasn't a win. It wasn't worth nearly as much as some people might think because Picasso made so many of them. It was worth between $2,000 and $3,000 on the market. This put the seller in the mood to wake up. His family paid $99,000 for it on a cruise ship back in the day. This showed that sales on cruise ships often charge too much for things. Rick put in a $1,500 offer. It was hard for the seller to take the money, and just when you thought the shop had seen enough Picasso for the day, someone else came in with two etchings. One was a drawing of a dove, and the other was called Poor Roby. Robin, on the other hand, was the worst of the two. Someone in the know said it could fetch between $800 and $500 in a museum. It was an early version printed on good paper. The seller wanted nothing for both, but Rick wasn't willing to pay too much, so he turned down the dove and put in an offer for $650 on Poor Roby. The seller agreed to the terms because they knew it would be better to get paid right away than to wait and hope for more. Was Rick's offer a good deal or a smart business move? Or did he insult the seller by offering too little? Tell us in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more deals and opinions that you might find interesting.